When I meet an, oh my goodness. All right. When I meet a new patient for the first time, I always try to ask, what makes you famous? Now, usually that's met with pretty puzzled looks, and so I follow up with, if I were to ask a friend or a loved one what makes you famous to them, what would they say? Or maybe, what would you want to be famous for? As a family medicine physician, I have 20 minutes with new patients. That's to learn everything from past medical history, surgical history, allergies, medications, so on and so forth. What they want to do, what they want to talk about at this visit, and oh yeah, to get to know them as a person. I've found this famous question has opened up some wonderful conversations about passions, interesting hobbies, renowned dishes that they're asked to bring to every get-together. It transforms a stranger in front of me into a human with a story. But every time I ask this question, it makes me question my own self. What makes me famous? I think my friends would say that I'm thoughtful. I have absolutely no idea what my husband would say. But what would I say? 5 years ago, I would have told you that I'm proud for being self-reliant and resourceful, having put my head down and pushed through a lot of things on my own. But are you really famous if your accomplishment is something that you keep to yourself? I'm very fortunate that I grew up in a family with 2 loving parents and a financially stable household. This privilege allowed me so much growing up. However, I always felt like I was under a microscope, that a lot was expected of me, sometimes to the point of perfection. I felt like it was my job to keep my family together. After hearing many declarations that my parents were getting divorced, I was always waiting for that other shoe to drop. When I experienced big feelings as a little person, as a young person, I tried to handle them on my own, that no one likes a squeaky wheel. These feelings internalizing problems shifted into the view that others' feelings were always more important than mine. But I felt like if I could anticipate and achieve everything that everyone always expected of me, that we would all be okay. I mean, I was a really happy, silly kid, but I tried really hard to be a good kid. I was also kind of a chubby kid, which other kids started making comments about when I was in about 3rd grade. I remember some of these comments still very viscerally to this day. So I went on my first diet when I was in 3rd grade, when I was 10. So I did all the things, I tried to get the good grades, I was on all the teams and clubs, and I was a normal weight. I was just checking off those boxes, right? This mentality of high achievement continued into high school, but I could never quite get that boyfriend. It had to be the way that I looked, right? It had to be that I was fat. This was early Y2K, those ages of Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, remember those really low-rider jeans? So I thought, well, what if I lost just 5 pounds? So those 5 pounds turned into 10, those 10 into 15, and so on and so forth, which turned into an exhausted young woman of about 100 pounds. At none of these weights did I get a boyfriend. At none of these weights did I feel self-confidence or love. I did feel daily migraines, a new ever-present feeling of cold and hunger. But I had convinced myself that I deserved to feel that way, that my resilience through this adversity brought one really important reward: control. I have a very distinct memory of having dinner with my family one night and looking at a grape on my plate. There was other food there that I would mush around to make look I ate something, but I really wanted that grape. I knew the calories of everything by this point in time, and I knew that grape had around 4 calories. But those 4 calories were calories that I could control. It was during this inner monologue about this one green grape that I thought, maybe the way that I'm feeling is not quite normal. As my parents took increasing notice of my eating habits, I'd quickly blame the migraines that I had or the stomach pains for stealing my appetite. Not a lie, but not really the truth either. They started bringing me to specialists who do tests, MRIs. Of course, nothing was found. It was around that time that I switched from my pediatrician to a family doctor, which also happened to be a family friend, and I'm sure had noticed the gradual but dramatic weight loss over the past couple of months. So at that new patient visit with him, after all the tests I'd done with all these specialists, he simply said, "You know, life can be really hard sometimes, and I'm guessing that's true for you too." He framed chronic stressors as Chinese water torture, those repetitive events or micro-traumas that are just a drop on their own, but wear us down over time. He emphasized that it wasn't silly or weak or wrong when these seemingly easy things seem to get to us. I never told my parents about that powerful conversation with my new doctor, and while I never sought formal help for my anorexia, I did vow after that appointment to start eating. But without any help from a counselor or my PCP, I'm going to guess that you're thinking this is probably not a good idea for you as a teenager to do this on your own. And you'd be right. So I swung from anorexia to completely dysfunctional view of food and bulimia. I hated myself truly deep down to the bone at this time because I was just too weak to go back to being normal. I tried every fad diet, every quick fix. Eventually, I realized food was just a symptom for the overarching problem of low self-esteem, self-doubt, and questioning my own self-worth. My guilt and shame fed the narrative that I would be stronger for tackling this on my own, but I was ready to take my life back, to control in a positive way this time. I started reading how to cook myself healthy foods, started doing yoga every morning, lifting weights. I eventually transitioned to a pescatarian diet, which allowed me to see food for nutrition rather than calories. I also met a group of friends in medical school that showed me what true friendship really was. They accepted me and celebrated me for who I was. I was taking care of myself, and others were taking care of me too. This friendship was truly transformative for me. I am happy and content all the way deep down at this time of my life. This contentment grew as I met and married my husband. However, in the weeks after our oldest daughter's birth, postpartum became higher and higher of a hurdle for me. This period was the lowest for me by far. I felt completely alone. Did I start medication? Did I see a counselor? We all know by now the answer to this is no. But you know what did finally get me to see my family doctor and talk to somebody? A pandemic that I obviously did not see coming and I could not prepare for. I just remember in the early stages of 2020 coming home after seeing patients and sitting in our garage thinking, I wonder if I can hug my kids tonight. It was a thought experiment with no solution, a mind game that I could not win. After many sleepless nights of what ifs, I finally saw my PCP. I was diagnosed with anxiety and OCD. That second one was sure interesting there for a while. I got started on medication and began attending therapy on a regular basis. The meds helped for sure, but man, therapy, that was a game changer. It was very clear very early on in counseling that I should have been doing this for the last 20 years. Just think if I would have been honest with myself when I was 16 and honest with everyone else. Could it all have been so different? Maybe so much of the things I suffered with for so long, all the self-doubt, body dysmorphia, depression, and anxiety. Of course, I'm not saying counseling fixed everything. I am still a work in progress. Not every step I take in this world is a confident-filled strut, but I'm finally accepting the footsteps that I make and leave behind me in this world. And for now, I think that's enough. So going back to that famous question from before, I just told you some of the stories and feelings that I kept very close to me for so long. And now they are out in the open. And I can share what I've discovered, that it's okay to have shame or guilt, and that does not diminish your self-worth. To this room of people, maybe I am famous for sharing what I've learned, for seeking help with the understanding that 20 years is not too late. And hopefully, if someone is listening has had similar experiences, maybe now you'll feel safe to connect with someone that you trust. Maybe we can normalize being famous for the things that we've done imperfectly, but learn from. Maybe we can be the friend, mother, or physician that can look others in the eye, see them, and say, life can be really hard sometimes, and I'm guessing that's true for you too. Thank you.